Hi everyone, my name is Mark Chambers and I am the musical director of Sestina Music. In preparation for our performance of In Praise of Saint Cecilia, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the saint and the strange story of how she became the patron saint of music. Saint Cecilia was martyred around AD 230. We know very little of her life or even if she existed at all. However, a cult dedicated to her memory celebrated the story of a young Christian woman who dedicated a life of chastity to God. She had a guardian angel who would watch over her, and she had been betrothed to marry by her father to Valerian. Yet on the night of their wedding, she told her husband that she was protected by the angel and that the angel would punish anyone who compromised her sanctity. She convinced Valerian to convert to Christianity also, and following this, he too could see the angel of God. Valerian and Cecilia then proceeded to convert his brother, Tiburtius, to Christianity. Valerian and Tiburtius were executed for their faith after refusing to worship the Roman god Jove. Cecilia was also brought in front of the Roman prefect Almalchius, and she too refused to renounce her faith. Almalchius sentenced her to be put to death by being placed in a hot bath with flames underneath. She proclaimed that the heat was comfortable and did not perish. Infuriated by this, Almalchius commanded for her head to be chopped off. The executioner struck Cecilia 3 times, yet failed to remove her head. She survived for 3 days and dedicated all of her property to the poor. As you can see from this story, there's no real glaring connection to music at all. There is mention of music at her wedding, and also that whilst in the bath being tortured, she was praying silently to God through song. Around AD 450, Arnobius the Younger wrote the Passio Sanctae Cecilia, and in it used the phrase cantantibus organis, which translates as while instruments sang. It is also possibly a mistranslation of candendibus organist, which means instruments of hot torture. In early pictorial depictions of Saint Cecilia, she was given the symbol of the palm, identifying her as a virgin martyr. Later on, she was represented with white roses and lilies, the gift given to her by her guardian angel. Other symbols associated with her were the falcon and the sword, neither of which became accepted into culture. In a painting by Master of Alkmaar, Saint Cecilia is pictured with the falcon, the sword, and for the first time, sitting next to an organ. In order to differentiate her from fellow virgin martyrs, the organ now became the symbol associated with her. In a similar way that Saint Agnes has the symbol of the Lamb, Agnus Dei, the Lamb of God, we have no reason why the symbol was attributed to Agnes apart from the similarity of her name to the Latin word. This mistranslation or misinterpretation of Cecilia singing with an organ, cantantibus organis, has now taken root in the collected imagination. Since Cecilia's association with music seemed now inseparable, the first musical guild dedicated to Cecilia was formed in Leuven in Holland in 1502. And on St. Cecilia's Day, a great feast of food and drink and music making became the normal way to mark the occasion. Around 1590 in Italy, Cardinal Sfondrato took charge of the Church of St. Cecilia in Rome. And on the 25th of January 1591, he employed a large number of musicians to perform at the celebrations of his elevation to the cardinate. As the holy year of 1600 loomed, Cardinal Sfondrato began to search for the remains of Cecilia. Perhaps fortuitously, a body claimed to be that of Cecilia was discovered right underneath the church dedicated to her name. A marble sculpture of the body was commissioned, and this can still be seen today. Our programme is centred around the music of Marc-Antoine Charpentier. He was associated with the household of Guise in Paris. Isabelle d'Orléans, or the Madame de la Guise, and Marie de Lorraine, Mademoiselle de Guise, were patrons to artists, and Charpentier actually lived in rooms in the Hotel de Guise and composed music for performance by the domestic staff of the household. Following the death of Isabelle's husband Louis Joseph in 1671, and soon after the death of her son Francois Joseph in 1675, aged only 5 years old, the women retreated from society and became more pious and religious. Much of the music commissioned around this time was dedicated to the Virgin Mary and to strong women. Charpentier wrote a sacred history, or Histoire sacrée, on the story of Judith, a widow who retained her husband's name and dedicated her life to prayer, much as the Guise sisters did. Along these biblical stories, Mademoiselle de Guise commissioned Charpentier to write several works on the life of Saint Cecilia. The symbolism of Christian converting the heathen was particularly relevant at this time, with Louis XIV attempting to bring Huguenot Protestants back to the Catholic faith. During a visit to Italy in 1642, Mademoiselle de Guise visited the shrine at Loreto, and she was so moved by the experience that she commissioned a jewelled model of the church to be built, which she kept in her private chambers. The Litany de la Vierge, which opens our concert, is one of 9 settings of the Litany of Loreto composed by Charpentier. The princesses continued to patronise musicians and artists, creating a legacy from their grief, and although the male line of the House of Guise died out, their names live on in the beauty of the music they commissioned.